I know what you think this story is. You've probably heard a version of it before. Middle-aged American man, Pattaya Beach, Thai bar girl, disaster. I've heard those stories too. I've read them. I've watched them on channels exactly like this one. The guy who thinks he found something real, and it turns out she was playing him the whole time, and everything he had is gone, and now he's living in a rental room somewhere trying to figure out how a man his age ends up broke. I've heard those stories so many times that when my story started, I could hear them playing in the back of my head like a warning track the whole time. And I kept going anyway. Because here's the thing. Sometimes, not often, I'll be very clear about that. Sometimes the impossible story is the one that's actually happening to you. My name is Wendell Cutts. I'm 64 years old. I'm from Peoria, Illinois. I spent 38 years as an insurance claims adjuster. And 2 years ago, I brought home a 29-year-old Thai woman named Ratana from Pattaya, Thailand. She is asleep in the next room right now as I record this. And I am genuinely, solidly, in a way I had stopped believing was available to me, happy. But, and there is a but, a significant but. Because right now, this week, her family in Udon Thani has asked us for 380,000 baht. That's about 10,500 US dollars. And I'm sitting here at 6:30 in the morning trying to figure out what this request means. Whether it means what it looks like on the surface, a family with a genuine opportunity asking for help from the one person in their circle who can provide it. Or whether it means something else. Something I've been afraid to look at directly. Because if it means something else, then I have to ask what the last 2.5 years actually were. And I'm not sure I'm ready for that question, but I'm going to tell you everything from the beginning, and at the end I'm going to ask you something, because I need outside eyes on this. Stay with me. Let me tell you who I was before any of this, because the story doesn't make sense otherwise. I grew up in Peoria. Dad worked at Caterpillar for 30 years. Mom was a school secretary. We were solidly, comfortably, unexcitingly middle American in the way that Peoria in the 1970s was engineered to produce. I wasn't the ambitious type. I want to be honest about that. I was the type who found a decent thing and held on to it. After 2 years at community college, and then finishing a bachelor's at Illinois State, business administration, nothing exciting, I got into insurance. Claims adjustment specifically, which is exactly what it sounds like. Someone has a claim, a car accident, a flood, a fire, and I come out and assess the damage and write a report, and we figure out what the policy covers. Unglamorous, detail-oriented, stable. I was good at it because I'm patient and I notice things that other people overlook. 38 years at the same company. Regional supervisor by the time I hit 50. I married Susan in 1987. We had 20 years together. 2 kids, both grown now, both doing fine. Darla's in Phoenix, Marcus is in Cincinnati. Susan and I ended things in 2007. Not dramatically. Not because anyone did anything wrong. We had just, I think the honest word is drifted. The kids were grown. The house was quiet. We were 2 people sharing a space and a history, but not really a present anymore. It was civil. The divorce took about a year. She got the house, I got an apartment, and a chunk of the retirement savings. We still talk occasionally about the kids. It's fine. What followed the divorce was not fine. Not terrible, but not fine. I was 50, living alone in an apartment in Peoria, going to work 5 days a week at a job I'd done so long it required almost no actual attention, coming home to the specific quiet of a life that had been built around someone else and now contained only me. My social life was my work colleagues and an occasional Saturday night with my friend Garrett, who had his own version of the same problem. Garrett was the one who first mentioned Thailand. He'd been to Pattaya twice and talked about it the way men who've been to Pattaya talk about it, with a kind of sheepish reverence, like they'd been somewhere they weren't entirely sure they were supposed to go. He told me about the beaches, about the food, about the cost of living, about the specific feeling of being somewhere warm when you're from Illinois and it's February. He didn't specifically mention the bars. He didn't have to. I was 50 years old and I knew what Pattaya was. I also knew that I was 50 and alone, and the winters were getting longer, and the apartment was getting quieter. I told him I'd think about it. I didn't go to Pattaya at 50. I went at 63, which tells you something about how long it takes some of us to admit what we actually need. 13 years of the same apartment, the same job, the same quiet Peoria evenings. I'm not going to dress it up. They were fine years in a lot of ways. The kids were good. Marcus got married, gave me 2 grandkids. Darla finished her nursing degree, built something she was proud of. I took vacations. Mexico twice, Costa Rica once, a cruise through the Caribbean that I mostly spent reading. But there was nothing, no one, that made any of it feel like it was for something. I turned 60 in my apartment. Garrett took me to a steakhouse, and we talked about retirement for 4 hours. He asked me what I wanted the next chapter to look like. I told him I genuinely had no idea. He said, "You should go to Thailand. You should have gone 10 years ago." I told him I wasn't sure I was that kind of man. He said, "Wendell, you're 60 years old. What kind of man do you think you have time to be?" I retired from the company in August 2022. 38 years. Full pension. Healthcare coverage carried through. The severance package for someone at my level, with my tenure, $114,000 after taxes. I was 62. I had a pension of approximately $2,800 a month. Social Security starting at 64 would add another $2,100. Until then, investment returns from the retirement accounts, approximately $1,200 a month. Monthly income at 62, approximately $4,000. A Peoria apartment cost me about $1,200 a month. After everything else, food, car, utilities, the ordinary cost of an ordinary life, I was saving maybe $700 a month. Not badly off, just not alive. In September 2022, 1 month after retiring, I booked a flight to Bangkok. 2 weeks. I told myself it was just a trip. I told myself a lot of things in that period that turned out not to be exactly right. I landed in Bangkok, spent 2 days, then took the bus to Pattaya. Garrett had given me a list of hotels, and I'd done enough research to have some idea of what I was walking into. What I was not prepared for, what I don't think you can actually be prepared for, is what it feels like to step out of Bangkok's gray chaos into the Pattaya beach air for the first time. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you about the first day, because the first day is where this whole story actually begins. I checked into my hotel, nothing fancy, a clean mid-range place near Jomtien Beach, rather than the walking street end, which seemed like the more manageable choice for a 62-year-old man from Peoria on his first day in Thailand. I unpacked, took a shower, changed into shorts and sandals that I hadn't worn since the Caribbean cruise, and I went to the beach. It was January. In Peoria in January, the temperature was somewhere around 19 degrees Fahrenheit, and the sky was the color of wet concrete. Here it was 84 degrees, and the Gulf of Thailand was the kind of blue that looks like someone made it up. I lay down on a beach chair. I ordered a cold singa from the guy walking the beach. I watched the water. And I thought, all right, this is what I was missing. Not anything complicated, just this. Warm air, blue water, the specific feeling of not being cold and not having anywhere to be. I was trying to apply sunscreen to my back, which, and I want to give you the honest version of this, is not easy when you're alone and 62 and not particularly flexible anymore. I was doing a kind of contorted reaching behind myself thing that was probably not graceful, and a voice said, in English with a Thai accent, that was warm rather than practiced, "You want some help with that?" I looked up. She was standing a few feet away. 27 years old, I found out later. Long dark hair, a smile that was, I want to be careful about this, because I know how this part of the story sounds. Genuine, not performed, not a smile that was trying to do something. Just warm. She had spotted me struggling and offered to help. That's all it was. I said yes. Her name was Ratana. She went by Ran. She asked if I'd like to return the favor, which I did, and then she sat down next to me and we started talking. Now, I need to stop here and tell you what was going through my head, because I think the honest version of this is more useful than the cleaned-up version. I knew what Pattaya was. I knew that a young Thai woman approaching a lone Western man on a Pattaya beach and offering to help with his sunscreen was not, in most versions of this story, a purely altruistic gesture. I was not naive. I was 62 years old. I had spent 38 years assessing situations and looking for what wasn't immediately obvious. I knew the landscape. But here's what I also knew. From 38 years of assessing situations, you evaluate the specific thing in front of you. Not the general category, the specific thing. And the specific thing in front of me was a 27-year-old Thai woman who was talking to me. Actually talking to me, following the conversation, asking real questions, and who had not, in the first hour we sat on that beach, asked me for anything. Not for a drink, not for money, not for anything. She was just talking to me. In a beach chair in Pattaya, Thailand. And I, Wendell Cutts from Peoria, Illinois, was genuinely interesting to someone. If you've never experienced the absence of that for a sustained period of time, maybe you can't understand what it did to me in that moment. If you have, you know exactly what I'm saying. We stayed on the beach for about 3 hours. She asked about America, about Illinois, about what insurance claims adjusting actually involved on a day-to-day basis, which I have never in my life had someone voluntarily ask about, and which I answered at probably excessive length because nobody had asked before. She told me about herself. From Udon Thani, in the northeast of Thailand, Isan region, she explained, which produced a specific kind of Thai person, more direct, warmer, less Bangkok polished. She'd been in Pattaya for 4 years. She worked at a bar on the second road, not Walking Street, a quieter area. She was honest about this in the same matter-of-fact way she was honest about everything, not defensive, not apologetic, just accurate. She had a roommate, a woman named Kwo, about the same age, who had a daughter, a girl about 7 years old named Fawn. She was sending money home to her parents in Udon Thani every month. Her mother had some health issues. The money went toward that, and toward the general household. She told me all of this in the first 3 hours we sat together. Not as a preamble to a request. Just as the facts of her life. The jet lag hit me around 4 in the afternoon. I told her I needed to go back to the hotel and sleep for a few hours, or I wasn't going to be any good for the rest of the evening. She said she understood. And then she said, "If you're not too tired later, I'm at the bar around 9. You could come by for a drink." Not, "Here's my phone number, let's make this a thing." Not, "Would you like to take me back to your room?" Just, "Here's where I'll be if you want to see me again." I went back to the hotel. I slept for 3 hours. And then I lay there in the dark air conditioning thinking about whether to go. Here is the exact thought process I had lying in that hotel room. And I'm going to tell you honestly, because I think the honest version matters. I knew what going to the bar meant, practically. It meant paying a bar fine. In Pattaya in 2022, that was typically 300 to 600 baht, about 8 to 17 US dollars, to take a girl out of the bar for the evening. It meant paying for her time. I want to say that plainly because I think pretending otherwise would be dishonest, and because I think dishonesty is how people in these situations end up telling themselves stories that don't serve them. I was considering paying for the company of a 27-year-old Thai woman who worked in a bar. That was the situation. And I lay there in that hotel room asking myself, is that something I'm willing to do? And the answer, after about 45 minutes of lying in the dark, was yes. Not because I'd abandoned my sense of self, not because I'd lost my mind, but because I was 62 years old, and I had spent 13 years being alone in a way that had slowly, quietly, taken something out of me. And I had 3 hours on a beach that afternoon that put something back. And I was willing to pay to see what came next. So I got up, got dressed, got a taxi to the bar. The bar was smaller than I expected. Open air, about 20 stools, a few tables, a handful of girls, some customers who looked like they'd been there for a while. Ran was behind the bar when I walked in. She saw me, and her face did something that I'm going to describe as carefully as I can because I think the description matters. It didn't light up in the performed way that a bar girl lights up for a customer. It did something smaller, something that looked, to a 62-year-old man who had spent 38 years paying attention to the specific details of things, like genuine surprise. Like she hadn't fully expected me to show up. "You came," she said. I said I told her I might. She said, "A lot of men say they might." She made me a Coke, I don't drink, which she'd learned on the beach, without being asked. We talked for a couple of hours. Around 11, I paid the bar fine. I want to be accurate about this. It was 500 baht, about $14. We went back to my hotel. And I'm going to be honest with you about what that night was and what it wasn't. It was not just a transaction. That's the only way I know how to say it. There was warmth in it that I don't think you can manufacture convincingly for 2 consecutive nights. I'm not saying that makes it something it wasn't. I know what the professional landscape was. But there are moments in life where the specific thing in front of you doesn't fit neatly into the category it appears to belong to. This was one of those moments. Over the next 4 days, I went back to the bar every evening. I paid the bar fine every time. Let me give you the financial accounting of those first days, because I think specifics matter, and I think being vague about money in these stories doesn't serve anyone. Bar fine, 5 times, 2,500 baht, about $70. Lady drinks each evening. Ran drank relatively slowly and never pressured me to buy more, which I noticed. Approximately 800 baht per evening, 4 evenings, about $90 total. Dinner, which we had together twice, approximately 1,200 baht each time, about $68 total. A boat trip to Koh Larn, the island offshore from Pattaya, that I suggested and organized, 1,500 baht for the boat, additional costs for the day, about $85. First week total, Ran related, approximately 6,000 baht, about $170. That's the honest accounting, not zero, but also not the dramatic financial extraction you might be expecting. Around day 5, something happened that I want to tell you about. We'd gone back to my hotel after the bar. We were lying in the dark talking, and I want to say that clearly, talking, because that is genuinely what was happening, and Ran said something that I've thought about many times since. She said, "You're different from most men that come here." I asked how. She said, "Most men, they listen enough to seem interested. You actually listen." I told her it was probably the job. 38 years of listening carefully to what people were telling you versus what they were leaving out. She said, "That's a good skill for living." I thought about that for a while. Then I asked her something I'd been thinking about but hadn't said. I said, "Do you like this work?" Long pause. She said, "I like some people I meet. I don't like everything about it." I asked what she'd do if she didn't do it. She said, "My mother needs medicine every month. My family needs things. So I don't think about that very much. Not, I want to escape, come rescue me. Just a plain, honest answer about a situation that didn't have a simple alternative. I appreciated that more than I could explain. On day 7, I went to the bar and Ran wasn't there. The other girl behind the bar told me Ran had gone to check on her roommate's daughter, Fawn, the 7-year-old, who had been sick. I sat at the bar for about an hour, had a Coke, talked to a couple of the other girls enough to be polite. Then I went back to the hotel. About an hour later, there was a knock on my door. It was Ran. She'd come back from checking on Fawn and asked at the bar where I'd gone and come to the hotel. She hadn't called ahead, just came. I opened the door and she said, "Fawn is better. Fever broke." I said that was good. She said, "You left the bar. I thought maybe you were not okay." She had come to check on me. Not because there was money in it. Because she thought I might not be okay. I'm 62 years old, and I'm standing in a hotel doorway in Pattaya, and a 27-year-old Thai woman who works in a bar came to check on me, because she thought I might not be okay. I don't know what you would have done with that. I know what I did. I let her in, and I sat down on the edge of the bed and I cried a little. Not dramatically, just quietly. The kind of crying that happens when you've been holding something for a long time and someone does something small that releases it. She sat next to me. She didn't say anything. She just put her hand on my back. And we sat like that for a while. My 2 weeks ended, and what happened on the last night, and what she did in the days before it, told me something I wasn't sure how to hold. The second week in Pattaya settled into a rhythm. I went to the bar in the evenings. Ran and I spent time together. We traveled a little, one overnight to Kanchanaburi, where the bridge on the River Kwai is, and where neither of us had been, which I suggested, and which cost us about 3,000 baht combined for the travel, accommodation, and food. About $85. She was good company in the way that good company is actually rare. She asked questions. She listened to the answers. She had opinions about things and she said them without either performing certainty or performing agreement. We talked about Fawn, her roommate's daughter. Ran talked about the girl with a specific kind of warmth, not maternal exactly, more like a mentor's warmth, someone who was genuinely invested in the kid doing well. Fawn apparently spoke better English than most adults Ran knew. I offered to bring some books from America when I came back. She said, "When you come back?" Not a question. I said, "Well, if I come back." She said, "Okay, if?" But she smiled when she said it. On the last night, I took Ran to dinner at a proper restaurant. Not a tourist place, a Thai restaurant that she chose, where she ordered for both of us in Thai, and the food was extraordinary. Afterward, we walked along the beach. She hadn't asked me for anything across 2 weeks. Not directly. She'd mentioned her mother's medication costs in passing once, about 3,000 baht a month, which she covered from her earnings. She'd mentioned that Fawn's schooling costs were going up, and her roommate Kawo was struggling to cover them. She'd mentioned that the roof of her parents' house in Udon Thani had some damage from last year's floods. She mentioned these things the way you mention the circumstances of your life when you're talking to someone, not as setups for requests. But on the last night, on the beach, she said something. She said, "I don't want to ask you for things because I don't want you to think that's what this has been." I said, "I know it hasn't been." She said, "But I also want to be honest with you. When you leave, things will be tight for a while. I was spending my evenings with you instead of working. That's money I don't have." She said it plainly, not as a manipulation, as an accounting. The difference matters, and I want to be clear that I understood the difference. I asked her how much she thought she'd lost across the 2 weeks. She thought about it. Said approximately 22,000 baht, about $620 US. I gave her 25,000 baht when I left, not as payment for anything specific, as honest acknowledgement that she had given something real across 2 weeks, and it had cost her. She tried to give some of it back. I told her not to. We said goodbye at the airport. She didn't cry the way the story sometimes goes. She just held my hand for a moment and said, "Safe flight, Wendell." And then she let go, and I went through the gate. The flight back to Illinois was the worst I'd experienced. Not the flight itself, the feeling inside the flight. I kept thinking about what I was flying back to, the apartment, the cold, the same quiet evenings, the specific feeling of being interesting to someone, which I'd had for 2 weeks and now was leaving behind. I landed in O'Hare, took the bus to Peoria, went into the apartment, made coffee, sat at the kitchen table, and thought about Ran. About 2 weeks after I got back, I emailed her. I'd gotten her email address before leaving. We'd agreed to stay in touch, but neither of us had made any promises about what that meant. She wrote back the same day. The email was funny, mostly. Stories about Fawn and her improving English. A story about something that had happened at the bar that was genuinely amusing without being inappropriate. And then at the end, something shorter. She said she was glad I had written. She said she thought about our conversation on the beach sometimes. She said, "You're easy to talk to, Wendell. I don't meet many people who actually listen." I wrote back. She wrote back. We emailed 3 or 4 times a week for 2 months. And then one Monday morning in March 2023, I was at the kitchen table looking at the balance on my retirement accounts and my pension statements and thinking about what the next chapter of my life was supposed to look like. And I booked a flight to Bangkok. Not a 2-week trip. A one-way ticket. I didn't tell Ran I was coming. I'm going to tell you why, and I'm going to tell you what happened when I showed up at her apartment. Because this is the moment in the story where I found out something I needed to know. I didn't tell Ran I was coming because I needed to know what I would find. Not because I suspected her of anything specific, but because I'm a claims adjuster by training and by nature, and what claims adjusters know better than anything is this. The most accurate picture of a situation is the one you get when the subject doesn't know you're looking. I didn't want to see the prepared version of her life. I wanted to see the actual version. I landed in Bangkok, took the bus to Pattaya, went to her apartment building rather than the bar. Her roommate Kayu answered the door. She was surprised. Not alarmed, surprised. She pulled me inside with the particular Thai welcome that doesn't require formal invitation and pointed at the sofa. Fawn came out of the back bedroom and recognized me from photos Ran had apparently shown her. She said, "You are Wendell from Illinois." With the pronunciation of someone who had practiced it. I said yes. She said, "Ran said you were kind." Caillou told me Ran was at her cleaning job. She had a part-time job cleaning offices in the morning, and wouldn't be back until around noon. I sat on the sofa. Fawn talked at me for 2 hours with the specific energy of a 7-year-old who has a lot to say and has found an audience who will actually listen. She showed me a book she'd been reading. She showed me a drawing she'd done of the island trip Ran had told her about. She asked me approximately 40 questions about Illinois, about snow, about whether it was true that Americans ate cheese with everything. I told her it was largely true. She seemed satisfied with this. At noon, the apartment door opened and Ran came in. She had a cloth bag with groceries in one hand and her phone in the other. She saw me. She went completely still. Not performing stillness, actually still. Her expression did the thing, and I watched it carefully because this is what I came to see. Her expression did the thing where genuine shock precedes anything practiced. She set down the groceries. She said, "Wendell." I said, "I told you I'd come back." She said, "You said if." I said, "I changed it to when." And she sat down on the arm of the sofa and put her face in her hands, and did not cry exactly, but made the sound of someone who was trying very hard not to. Fawn, who had been watching this with great interest, said in Thai something that made Ko laugh. I asked what she'd said. Ko said, "She says she told Ran you would come back." The next 2 months in Pattaya were the best I'd had in longer than I could honestly account for. Let me give you the financial picture of that period. Accommodation. I found a month-to-month rental apartment near Ran's area, 23,000 baht a month, about $640. Living expenses, groceries, transport, eating out, general costs. Approximately 15,000 baht a month, about $420. I helped with Fawn's school expenses for 2 months. Kaya was struggling, and Fawn's school fees were 8,000 baht a month. I covered it both months, about $450 total. I paid for Ran's mother's medication for 2 months, the 3,000 baht a month that Ran had been covering herself, and that was stretching her. 6,000 baht, about $170. A weekend trip to Khao Yai National Park, which neither of us had been to, that Ron organized, and that cost about 4,000 baht combined, about $112. 2 months total, all costs including my own living, approximately 98,000 baht, about $2,700. Of that, Ran and family related specifically, approximately 18,000 baht, about $500. Not extravagant, not zero. Honest. Ran had, by this point, stopped working at the bar. She'd told them she was taking a break. She was still doing the office cleaning job in the mornings. We talked about it directly. I told her I didn't need her to stop working at the bar because of me. She said, "I stopped for me, not for you." I believed her. I still believe her. Whether or not that belief is accurate is part of what I'm trying to figure out right now. But in that moment, in that apartment in Pattaya, with Fawn's drawings on the refrigerator and Ko making noise in the kitchen, and Ran sitting across from me being direct, in the way she was always direct, I believed her. About 6 weeks into my return, I proposed, and I want to tell you about the proposal because it was nothing like what you'd expect. And then I want to tell you about what came next, the immigration process, because that is where the real money started moving. The proposal was not on a beach with a ring box and a rehearsed speech. It was at the kitchen table in my rented apartment, over dinner that Ran had cooked, a northern Thai dish from her region that involved ingredients I didn't recognize and tasted extraordinary. I had been thinking about it for 3 weeks. Not impulsively. I had done what I do when I need to think through something significant. I had written it out. The pros, the cons, the risks, the things I knew and the things I didn't know and the things I could find out. The things I knew, Ran was direct and honest in ways that were specific and consistent. She had not asked me for money in the way that people ask for money, when money is the primary objective. She had come to check on me at the hotel when I was having a quiet moment. She had stopped at the bar on her own judgment. She treated Fawn with genuine investment that wasn't performative. The things I didn't know. What happened when the financial situation changed? Whether the warmth I experienced was permanent or situational. Whether 22 months in the relationship was enough to know the thing I needed to know. The things I could find out, only by doing it. I put the pen down and looked at what I'd written. And I thought, Wendell, you're 63 years old. You have come alive in the last 2 months, in a way you had forgotten was possible. Are you going to keep writing lists, or are you going to live? I asked her over the dinner table. Not with a ring. I hadn't gotten one yet, which I told her, which made her laugh. I said, I want you to come back to Illinois with me. I want to make this legal. I want to do this properly. But I want to know if that's something you actually want. Not something you'll do because of what I can provide, because of what we are. She looked at me for a while. Then she said, I know what you're asking underneath that question. I said, I know you do. She said, the honest answer is I don't know how to separate those things completely. You are a good man and you are able to take care of things. I can't pretend those are unrelated. But I also... She stopped. Then she said, I also laugh with you, real laughing, and I don't laugh like that with very many people. I said, that's enough for me. She said, yes. I'm going to tell you what the immigration process actually cost, because I think it's important, and because nobody tells you honestly. The K-1 fiancé visa process for bringing a Thai citizen to the United States is extensive. Here's the breakdown. UC's filing fee, Form I-129F, $535. At the time we filed, biometrics and medical examination required in Bangkok for Thai applicants. Approximately 8,500 baht for the medical, plus transport and one night's accommodation in Bangkok for RAN, approximately 12,000 baht total, about $335 US. Visa interview at the U.S. Embassy in Bangkok. No fee for the interview itself, but the DS-160 non-immigrant visa application fee, $160, plus travel cost to Bangkok and one night's accommodation again, approximately 8,000 baht, about $395 US. Attorney assistance. I hired an immigration attorney in Peoria to help with the paperwork because I wanted it done right. Attorney fees, $2,400. Affidavit of support documentation. This is the form where you prove you can financially support your fiancé. Requires tax returns, bank statements, employment verification. I was retired, which required additional documentation. Attorney helped with this, included in the fee above. Translation and document certification. Birth certificates, passport copies, all official Thai documents had to be certified translated. Approximately 15,000 baht, about $420. Total immigration process cost, approximately $4,245 US. Plus the ring, which I got in Bangkok, 28,000 baht, about $780. We married within 90 days of her arrival in Peoria, as the K-1 visa requires. Marriage license in Illinois, $60. Simple ceremony at the county courthouse with a reception dinner for Ran, my kids, and a few friends, approximately $2,800. Total from proposal to married in America, approximately $7,885 US. I want to tell you what happened when Ran met my kids, because I think this part matters. Darla came from Phoenix. Marcus drove from Cincinnati with his wife and the grandkids. We did dinner at my apartment. Ran cooked. She'd been in Peoria for 3 weeks at that point and had found a Thai grocery store and was learning the layout of a new country with the same methodical curiosity she applied to everything. Darla was polite and careful in the way that children are polite and careful when they are genuinely concerned about a parent's judgment. Marcus was quieter, assessing. What changed things was the grandkids. Ran with children it's a specific thing. A specific quality of attention that you can't fake convincingly with 2 actual children who are 7 and 9 and have no patience for performance. By the end of the evening, both kids were sitting next to Ran watching her show them something on her phone. Marcus caught my eye across the table. He gave me a small nod. Not enthusiasm, but something. Darla, when she helped me with the dishes before leaving, said, "She's not what I expected." I asked what she'd expected. She said, "I don't know, not someone who actually seems like she likes you." I said, "Yeah, that part still surprises me too sometimes." I want to tell you what happened when Ran met my kids, because I think this part matters. Darla came from Phoenix. Marcus drove from Cincinnati with his wife and the grandkids. We did dinner at my apartment. Ran cooked. She'd been in Peoria for 3 weeks at that point and had found a Thai grocery store and was learning the layout of a new country with the same methodical curiosity she applied to everything. Darla was polite and careful in the way that children are polite and careful when they are genuinely concerned about a parent's judgment. Marcus was quieter, assessing. What changed things was the grandkids. Ran with children it's a specific thing, a specific quality of attention that you can't fake convincingly with 2 actual children who are 7 and 9 and have no patience for performance. By the end of the evening, both kids were sitting next to Ran, watching her show them something on her phone. Marcus caught my eye across the table. He gave me a small nod. Not enthusiasm, but something. Darla, when she helped me with the dishes before leaving, said, "She's not what I expected." I asked what she'd expected. She said, "I don't know, not someone who actually seems like she likes you." I said, "Yeah, that part still surprises me too sometimes." That was almost 2 years ago. And now I need to tell you about those 2 years honestly, because everything I've told you so far is the setup. The actual question, the thing I'm recording this video to think through, is in what those 2 years have looked like. The honest version of 2 years in Peoria with Ran. Not the highlight reel, the actual version. Month 1 through 3. She was learning everything simultaneously. American grocery stores, which she found overwhelming. The driving, she didn't drive in Thailand. Most people used motorbikes and songthues, so learning to drive in Peoria was its own project. The cold, which she knew about intellectually and was not prepared for in January. She found the Thai grocery store in Springfield, 45 minutes away, and organized a weekly trip. She took the driving test 3 times before passing. She had a genuine breakdown in February, when Peoria got 2 feet of snow, and she stood at the kitchen window, looking at it for a long time, and then sat down at the table and said, "I understand now why Americans go to Thailand." I made her a hot drink and we sat together, and I told her it got better in April. She said, "April is 3 months away." I said, "I know." She made it to April. Month 4 through 12. She found a job. This surprised me more than it should have. She'd been looking, quietly, without telling me she was looking, for work she could do that didn't require credentials she didn't have in America. She found a position at a Thai restaurant in Peoria, not as a cook, as a front-of-house manager. The owners were Thai, which helped. Her English was good. Her organizational instinct was good. She took the job in May. She has been there since. She makes about $2,800 a month. I did not ask her to get a job. She decided she wanted one. That matters. Money. She contributes to the household, approximately $1,200 a month toward shared expenses. What I spend, my pension $2,800, Social Security now kicked in another $2,100, investment returns $1,200, about $6,200 a month total. Our combined monthly household income, approximately $9,000. Our monthly expenses, approximately $4,000. Mortgage on the house I bought after she arrived. I'd been renting, but we needed more space, and it made financial sense. About $1,400. Utilities, food, car, health insurance for her through the marketplace, remaining $2,600. Monthly surplus, approximately $5,000. We save consistently. For the first time in 13 years, I am genuinely building financial reserves. Not just coasting. Building. The family stuff? This is where I need to be specific. Her mother's medication. I've been covering this since the Pattaya days. 3,000 baht a month, approximately $85. Direct transfer to her parents' account in Udon Thani. Over 2 years, approximately $2,040. Her roommate Ko's daughter Fawn, I had promised books and I sent them. A box of English language children's books, about $90 with shipping. Fawn's school fees, Ran asked me once, about 8 months ago, whether we could contribute something. Her roommate was still struggling. I said we could do 5,000 baht a month, about $140. We've done that for 8 months, $1,120 total. A roof repair on her parents' house in Udon Thani. This came up 18 months ago. Significant damage from flooding. The repair cost 220,000 baht. I put in 150,000, about $4,200. Her brother contributed the rest. Running total of family-related costs, 2.5 years. Monthly medication, $2,040. Fawn's school contribution, $1,120 books for Fawn, $90. Roof repair, $4,200. Various small items. A birthday gift for her parents. Help with a medical visit for her father, approximately $800. Total family-related expenditure, approximately $8,250. This is not nothing, but against a monthly surplus of $5,000 over 2 years, this is manageable. It's within range. It's the kind of help a person provides to their spouse's family when they can afford to, and the need is real. The need has been real each time. I've verified what I could verify. The roof damage was real. She sent photos and a contractor estimate. The medication is real. I've seen the prescription documentation. Fawn's school fees are real. I've seen the enrollment paperwork. None of this has felt like extraction. It has felt like the ordinary financial texture of being connected to a family in a poorer country when you have more than they do. And then last week the request came, and it's bigger than anything before it, and it's the reason I'm recording this at 6:30 in the morning, with Ran asleep in the next room. Ran's brother Somchai, the one who contributed the other 70,000 baht for the roof repair, has been running a small motorcycle repair shop in Udon Thani for several years. He's good at what he does. Ran has told me this multiple times and shown me customer reviews on his Facebook page that I can read through Google Translate and that are consistently positive. He wants to expand. There is a commercial space available adjacent to his current shop. He wants to take the space, add a parts inventory operation, sell parts alongside the repair service rather than ordering them in from Bangkok, which takes time and cuts his margins. He has put together a business plan. Ran showed it to me on Saturday evening. His projected costs: lease deposit and first 3 months on the expanded space, 95,000 baht. Initial parts inventory, 180,000 baht. Shelving, storage, minor equipment, 45,000 baht. Working capital reserve, 60,000 baht. Total, 380,000 baht, approximately $10,500 US. He is asking us, specifically asking Ran, but understanding that means asking me, to provide this capital, not as a gift. As a loan, he said, with a repayment schedule of 12,000 baht a month starting in month 4. That repayment schedule, if honored, would return the full amount in approximately 3 years. I looked at the business plan. I'm a claims adjuster. I look at documentation professionally. The plan is reasonable, not spectacular, not a sure thing, but reasonable. The location is good. Udon Thani is a major city in the northeast, with genuine commercial infrastructure. The motorcycle repair market in that region is real. The logic of integrating parts sales with repair service is sound. The numbers are not inflated. He's not asking for a luxury. He's asking for functional business capital. And here is what I'm sitting with. I trust Ran. That is, I trust her in the specific way that you trust someone after 2.5 years of watching them be consistent. She has been consistent. She got a job. She contributes. She is honest about what she wants and what she's thinking in a way that I find genuinely rare. She has not asked me for anything unreasonable across 2.5 years. The family costs have been real, verifiable, within range. This request is different in scale. $10,500 is not within range the way medication costs and school fees are within range. But it is also different in structure. It's a loan with a repayment plan, not a gift. And here is the question that I keep circling. Is a $10,000 loan to a Thai man running a small business in Udon Thani A reasonable thing for a 64-year-old American man with a $5,000 monthly surplus and genuine trust in his wife to consider. Or is this the moment? The moment where the previous 2.5 years were the setup and this is the actual extraction? I don't think it's the second one. I genuinely don't. But I also know, from 38 years of claims adjusting, that the moment you feel certain something isn't a problem is sometimes the moment you should look most carefully. Let me give you the complete financial picture so you have the full information. My current monthly income: pension, $2,800, Social Security, $2,100, investment returns, approximately $1,200, portfolio has grown modestly, total, $6,100. Rand's monthly income from restaurant, $2,800. Combined household income, $8,900. Monthly household expenses, approximately $4,000. Monthly surplus, approximately $4,900 or current savings reserves. U.S. savings account, approximately $47,000 investment accounts, approximately $218,000 grew from the retirement accounts over the years. If I loan Somchai $10,500, savings account reduces to approximately $36,500. Investment accounts untouched. Repayment, if honored, returns $10,500 over approximately 3 years. If repayment is not honored, which is the risk, I've given away $10,500. Against a savings account of $47,000, that is a manageable loss. Against the question of what it means about the previous 2.5 years, it is not manageable in the same way. Here is what I know. What I know about Ran. She is real. 2.5 years of consistency. She has not been performing. I would stake 38 years of professional pattern recognition on that. What I know about Somchai. I have met him once, on video call. He seems straightforward. His business plan is reasonable. His repair shop has been operating for several years without scandal that I can find. What I know about the amount. $10,500 is the largest single-family related request we've had. It is significantly larger than anything that came before. What I know about the pattern. Everything before this was smaller, verifiable, within range. This breaks the pattern in scale, if not in character. What I know about what happens if I say no. I don't know, and that not knowing is part of what I'm sitting with. Because in most of the stories I've read about relationships like this one, the first no, the first significant no, is when you find out what you actually have. If Ran receives the answer that we can't do this, and her response is to understand, to be disappointed but not angry, to respect the decision, that tells me something. If the response is cooling, distance, a change in the texture of the warmth, that also tells me something. I have not given her the answer yet. I've been sitting with this since Saturday. I can hear Ran in the next room. The sound of someone waking up in a house that has 2 people in it, which is a sound I did not have for 13 years in Peoria, and which I would be dishonest if I pretended was not a factor in how I'm thinking about this. I want to ask you 3 things. Real questions, not rhetorical. Question 1. Is there a principal difference between the $10,000 request and the request that came before? The roof repair was $4,200. That was real and verifiable, and I provided it without serious hesitation. Somchai's business capital is $10,500. It is a loan, not a gift. It is for a real operating business, not an emergency. Is the difference just scale? Or is there something structurally different about this request that should change how I evaluate it? Question 2. How do I test it without destroying it? Because here's what I keep coming back to. The most accurate information I could have about what I actually have with Ran would come from saying no to this request and watching what happens. But if what I have with Ran is real, and I believe it is, then saying no to a reasonable request from her family, for no reason other than to test her, is not something a person does to someone they trust. The test destroys the thing being tested. So how do I get the information I need without conducting a test that assumes the thing I'm testing for? Question 3. Am I at 64 years old capable of making this decision clearly? I'm not asking whether I'm stupid. I don't think I'm stupid. I'm asking whether any of us are capable of clear-eyed financial decision-making when the decision is tangled up with the thing that makes our life feel worth living. Because the apartment in Peoria at 50, at 55, at 60, at 62, it was fine, it was safe, it was mine. And it was the loneliest sustained experience of my adult life. And Ran in the next room, waking up in my house, is the opposite of that. I am aware that knowing this might be affecting my judgment. I am also aware that being aware of it doesn't make me immune to it. If you've been somewhere like this, any version of it, any country, any cultural gap, any moment where what you have feels real and a significant financial decision is asking you to prove it to yourself, tell me what you did. Tell me what you wish you'd done. Tell me what you see from outside this that I can't see from inside it. I'll read everything. And when we decide, because I'm going to have the real conversation with Ran today, actually today, before I lose my nerve, I'll come back and tell you what happened. Not the version I'd like it to be. The actual version. Because that's the only one worth telling.